Hello. Hopefully this is going out live. Now we shall see. Hi, Ines. Can you hear me, Ines? You could put a little thumbs up in the comments or something, just to let me know. Hi, Alex. So we're here, it's about 12 noon. Hi, Jack. Lovely to see you all. Yeah, so Ines has given us a wave, so I'm assuming you can hear, and Jack, you can hear. That's brilliant. Hi, Jax. Hi. So good for you to all come on at lunchtime and your busy day. So the idea of my live today, which is not on a beach, it's in my office, is to connect with a couple that I married last year, fresh out of lockdown. So it was early July when the restrictions allowed 8 people plus a celebrant at the wedding. And outdoors, I think there was an outdoors only rule as well. It's all a bit vague now how these restrictions moved and changed throughout the summer. And so the idea is really just to talk about how we, as we kind of collaborated to working with the plans of a larger wedding and taking it down to a micro wedding. And here they are.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Hi, Kirstin. Hi.
Hi.
Lovely to meet you too.
You too.
Of course. Is it dark in Vietnam?
Yeah.
It's also quite loud, so if there's any noise issues, just let us know. We have tried to find a quiet spot, but I'm not quite sure how it's gone.
It sounds absolutely perfect just now. So
okay, perfect.
Thanks for joining me today. So it's 12 noon here. I've got my coffee, and you're probably having a beer or a cocktail.
Yeah.
Great. I was just explaining to those that have joined us the idea of our chat today. How I was saying you got married fresh out of lockdown, really, didn't you? When restrictions could be lifted a little. And I really just wanted to kind of explore with you how, I suppose, the process of decision making and how you were able to kind of turn it around. So going from a large, what I remember, it was going to be a weekend celebration, a campsite, all sorts of things, and how you turned that around really to a micro, what I was calling a micro wedding at that time. So does that sound okay with you two to just
sounds perfect?
Brilliant. So before our chat today, I had to look back at some of our emails and things, and just to get an idea of when we started working together. And I think that was summer 2019 that we So when is it you got engaged? Was it some summer?
March.
April.
Right.
That's really good.
No, it was just your second week of your
around Easter time.
Right.
Sometime around then.
Yeah. So you got engaged, you started kind of thinking about your plans for your wedding, and that was when you contacted me, and we began, as a celebrant, we began to kind of work together. And I was just looking through, how we began to work on your ceremony. We had, into early 2020, we started looking at your kind of love story. We started, we got as far as quite a good ceremony outline. And I looked at that today, and actually it's quite amazing how it changed. I don't know if you've looked at it, if you've kind of, but
no, we've not looked at it recently.
No, it's quite interesting how, because I just looked at it this morning, and how obviously it was planning for 100 people.
Yeah.
That whole big ceremony. So including your friends doing readings, bringing in lots of things. So when I read that, I thought, oh wow, yeah, we really did pivot. You know, whoa, we
Yeah,
did.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a big change.
Yeah, yeah. So and you know, we went to visit the venue on the 14th of March
Yeah,
as well, and
Yeah.
the week before lockdown, we were like
I
convinced
know.
everything was going ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember we were aware what was going on, but we were being cautious, but we were carrying on. We were doing the work.
Yeah.
Um, and then you emailed me at the end of March saying the registrars had been in touch and said there was no weddings. Do you remember that?
Yes, well, so my memory is like we went into lockdown and we were both quite adamant for like a few days at
Yeah.
least
There
that
was a
like
lot of optimism that it would blow
we're
over.
going ahead, this will
Yeah.
blow over, it'll be fine. And it took like a really stern talking to from my mum to be like, this isn't happening, get your head around that, like make a backup plan, blah blah blah, because that's what we were saying when we were chatting about like doing this with you. Like we had put so much into the whole weekend celebration, so the ceremony was actually a really small part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And our focus was on like having our 100 family and friends there for like 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, feeding them and housing them and like entertaining them and having that whole thing. And everything was like independent suppliers that we'd brought together. And I think we just didn't want to let the thought of all that work go. So then when we actually acknowledged it, it was like, for me, it felt like a form of grief. You've described it as something different for you, but I was like a bit heavy for a few days, definitely.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, I didn't really hear from you for a while. I think you were probably going through that decision making process, which is going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, the way they make decisions in regard to this, you know, because there's all these different options: postponing, cancelling, you know, cutting down size, etc. So there's just so much to take on board.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite easy, just like you were saying, Chris, you kind of put this little bubble around you of optimism and just think, oh, we can carry on this. Yeah. So yeah, I remember that you were a bit kind of quiet for a while, and then you came back and you kind of explained where you were at, how you were just in this process of decision making. And did you feel like the decision making process, you were on a kind of even keel together, or did you feel like you had different thoughts?
I think so. We had a lot, like, around those couple of months, that there was so much going on with moving to Vietnam, with quitting jobs, and then obviously getting married, and that was such a huge part of our plans going forward. And yeah, I just think when it was kind of taken out of our control, we had to change our attitude. We had to sort of adapt and change how we were thinking about the wedding. But then it turned into a very positive thing, I think, once we actually got the go-aheads to be able to get married and to go ahead with everything. Even at last minute, things kept changing, but it became very positive, certainly for me.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So it was quite a process then, and you felt like, and it was kind of processes you're probably going through as individuals, but also as a couple, to, you know, slightly kind of supporting each other and working through things. And was there other, you mentioned your mum, Kirstin, that she was there talking to you about this, and was there other people that you felt you could turn to for kind of support, or like neutral kind of support, you know?
I think like our families were both really good, like, and everyone made it super easy. So like when we had to email everyone who was supposed to be coming and say, this isn't happening now, we don't know what it's going to look like. Initially we thought we would just postpone the whole 100-person celebration for a year, and kind of just sent out an email to that kind of basically effect. It was basically like, this isn't happening, we don't know what's happening, stay safe. And that I think kind of like once that was gone, like once the kind of what we thought everyone else would think about it was taken out of our hands, then actually it was really simple to just be like, well, what do we want to do? Like, do we want to get married this year? Can we get married this year? What would it look like?
Yeah.
And then that was what actually became really nice about working with you, because it all of the importance of the actual day like then hinged on the ceremony. And I think although we knew that was important and we'd spent time with you and we were preparing for that, I don't think we had placed enough importance on it for the day. For like how I remember it anyway. And so to actually pivot on that, and then our whole day really be about this intimate celebration of just us was actually really good.
Yeah, because the ceremony was probably almost written, and ready for 100 guests, and guests that knew Kirstin, guests that knew Chris better, guests that maybe, so there was this kind of slightly performative side of it for people to get to know you as individuals and as a couple and the step you were taking. But so it was very different when we had to kind of change. And when you got married, the restrictions, as I mentioned earlier, the restrictions were 6. Well, there was 8 plus a celebrant. So the couple, 6 guests. Yeah. So one of the questions that's just come in is, how did you choose who to invite? And that's a big question for many people, even if it's the numbers are 20 or 15 or whatever.
So it ended up just being our parents that attended. Parents only, so our brothers and sisters couldn't come, but yeah, we just sort of had to just accept that was the limit. I think it might have changed now, but at the time you couldn't have a photographer or videographer. And I think, so when you were saying earlier how much the ceremony changed, I think when we've looked back on it, it became a lot more, like the ceremony was the main event now. And so it was, it went from sort of just going through the motions in front of 100 people to actually really thinking about the ceremony and really getting to enjoy it. And it did change because it was our parents. They knew us very well already.
And
so
that's right. That's so right. And that's something I've probably shared with you, and what I'm feeling in regard to working with couples now is that it's very much about because the guests that are there are the guests that know them best. We don't have to go into these elaborate stories of meeting. Everybody knows those stories. So it's taking away that performative side and really looking at what we're doing in the moment, in that 15-20 minute ceremony, that threshold moment of walking into marriage, etc. So it really changed it for all of us. And
I think as well, like for me, having it just be 6 people, like 6 guests and us, made it super simple. Like my parents are divorced, so like including my step parents, that was us. Our 6 people was just parents.
That was easy.
And actually it was so easy. But now if you told me like 20 people, I'd be like, oh well, we'd obviously then have our siblings, like our grandparents, and then actually, but who else? Like who then do you pick? So I think it actually made it easier having it even smaller. So that's maybe something to consider if you are thinking, oh, you have to fill those 20 spaces. Actually, maybe you don't. I don't feel like there was any, like obviously it would have been great to have more people there, but I don't feel we missed out on having people there as well. Sorry to anyone listening.
No, but that's, I think that's a really good point actually about again, it's about, and I always go on about this, about what is meaningful to you. So it's a bit like the ceremony, isn't it? I would say, don't fill it with stuff that isn't meaningful to you. And in a way, it's a kind of, don't fill the numbers because you feel that you should, or something like that. Well, maybe it's like, if you feel that it's better, or more appropriate to just keep it small, then yeah, keep it small.
Yeah.
So last year what we went from was no weddings to 5. So that was your couple, your witnesses, and your celebrant, to then 8 plus your celebrant. Then we went up to 15, and then we went to 20, and then we stayed at 20 until this lockdown that we're in now, and we've gone back to 5.
Okay.
And of course, there was a kind of outdoor rule. That's what I seem to remember last summer, that you could have 5, you could have 8, but it had to be outdoors as well.
Yeah.
So,
which worked perfectly for us anyways. It kind of allowed us to stay quite close to what our original ceremony was going to be. So yeah, that
exactly.
and
that was one of the questions that came in just now as well, was about suppliers. How you know, did you feel kind of supported in communicating with your suppliers? How did that go as well?
Yeah, so it's actually been quite a long process, because we did initially postpone our like big celebration, and we still didn't know whether we were going to go ahead with that until actually just last month when we arrived out here. And again, we haven't told any of our guests yet, but that is not going ahead. So again,
announcement.
First news broken here. But so when we initially postponed, like everyone was fine about it. There were maybe 1 or 2 suppliers who were like asking for like a slightly like higher deposit just to help them get through that year, which was totally fair. And then last month I went through the process of cancelling completely everything. And actually, like, luckily, so we used a lot of small suppliers, and so obviously we wanted to help them as much as we could, but ultimately we were going to lose a lot of money potentially by cancelling. But actually everyone's been so great, and we've gotten back, you know, parts of deposits, or what, basically however people have been able to help, they've helped. And actually I think it's so good, like building up, you know, a bit of a relationship with your suppliers is so important. Like you don't want to be that like horrible person that they just don't want to deal with. I think you should just aim for that in life, really.
Yeah, I agree, and I would suggest that to couples that are in this, you know, decision-making process, is talk to your suppliers, you know, because there can be a lot of assumptions made. Oh, well, I won't be able to use the venue if I'm only using, you know, if I'm only having a tiny ceremony. But the venue, you know, your venue was really happy for you to use the stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were totally open to that, and I think many venues would be the same, and many suppliers would be incredibly supportive, and it really helps in your decision-making process to get an idea of where everyone's at as well. And not make assumptions really. So one of the questions that came in was, are you going to have a celebration, you know, later on? A lot of people kind of plan or, you know, hope to do something like that, but obviously you've moved to Vietnam.
We hope we can. We obviously want. We loved bringing together, like putting our event together, and it was something that we both had a lot of fun doing. We sort of selected everything individually, and we'd love to host something in the future, but at the minute, because of closed borders and everything, we don't know where we're going to be.
And you know, you didn't just have the challenge of your wedding, you also had the challenge of being apart. So after the wedding, Chris, you went over to Vietnam to work, and then, you know, finally getting there, being there together now is amazing. So you've had the most challenging year, you know, in different ways, but it's fantastic to see you both there. And I love your stories and all the colourful sights. It's amazing. And just going back, Kirstin, you mentioned earlier about almost feeling like a kind of sense of grief, you know, all this work you put into creating this wonderful event to celebrate you both, and having to say goodbye to that, having to kind of put that to bed a bit, can be quite a process.
I think it takes some time, and obviously like that time period, so we're talking about like March to May 2020, and that was such a strange time for everyone. Like the whole world was changing, like it was unprecedented is the word of the year, like all of that stuff. And so then having to kind of, I don't know, at first it felt like a surrendering, a giving up, and then I feel like it shifted and it changed, and it became, when we kind of took back the power and said, like, well, actually, what do we want and what can we do? And it became not about like being so negative about it. Like I know a lot of people who just felt like completely devastated, which is obviously normal. But for us, we just didn't want that phase to last very long. Like we were devastated, but actually it became about creating something different and special in a different way.
Good.
And so when we moved into that headspace, actually, and then you have the support of all the people around you, and you think, well, actually that is all possible. So it becomes again about possibility and not about what you've potentially lost or gotten rid of. And actually we know that whenever we do get all of our family and friends together in one room for a big party, like it'll be so much more appreciated now because of all the time apart. So
that's right. No, I think that is an important point, and because I think, and I've mentioned this to couples I've been working with over the last few months as well, it's about dealing with that process and being able to put it to bed a bit and then move on to the new celebration, the new ceremony, the new wedding that you're envisaging, because I think if you cling on to what might have been, I think you're not going to really get the most out of what is, if you know what I mean. I think it's quite a process, and of course everyone's so different and everyone's going to do that in different ways and over different periods of time as well.
I think with you're saying, like, again, this because of everything going on and the chance to actually get to go ahead with the wedding was as soon as we got that news, it was like it just felt better than the original thing, because it was like a good bit of news and like quite a lot of obviously negative news going on. So even though it wasn't what we wanted, it just felt amazing to be able to just have that celebration and like and I think we definitely appreciated it much more because of that. And
it was wonderful. And even I think the registrars were really excited because it was like their first lockdown, and it was all like everyone was really excited. It was so nice. It was just wonderful. And what so you've already said quite a lot of positive things about that, the day you did get married. Can you is there anything you want to add to that, that the day of the ceremony and when we gathered in that beautiful space, your beautiful arch, and with it was so lovely to meet your parents, your very close family. So anything else to add about that day?
But for me, it was we talked about the ceremony sort of changing quite dramatically, and it was very much like we did a section where it was 5 things that we loved about one another, and I can't remember them now, but at the time it just felt amazing to do that, and because I don't think we would have done that if there'd been 100 people there. It wouldn't, because it was so intimate, and it was just 8 people stood around the circle or sat on the logs, and we could do that, and it just felt I felt very in the moment during it. I just thought
that's fantastic.
Very special sort of.
That's interesting. So you might, from what I'm hearing, couples could make different choices depending on the amount of people they're there. And intimate, we talk about an intimate ceremony as in numbers of people that are there, but actually the ceremony itself becomes quite intimate, between the two of you as well. And I'm kind of learning that as a celebrant as well. My practice is really changing about the kind of things I offer couples as well. But that was wonderful. And any other tips or anything that you could, you know, for couples that are maybe in a similar situation now? Because we've had an announcement on Tuesday from the First Minister, and it really, you know, we're moving out of this lockdown very, very slowly. So it's going to, you know, it's hard to say what's going to happen with weddings, but mid-March is when maybe schools would go back, you know, some more pupils would go back. So that's mid-March. He also said, don't book holidays in Scotland for, you know, Easter. Don't plan to travel during Easter. There'll be no B&Bs open. You know, you're getting this kind of vibe that it's going to linger. So any other kind of tips or anything for couples that are like, okay, we need to really think. Their mums are going, right, come on, you need to
we spoke about this earlier, and we were saying like the flexibility, sort of having a plan, but not being too like hung up on it. It's definitely going to happen. And
yeah, because actually, even with our like actual ceremony, I don't know if you remember, but we had to push it by a week.
Yeah.
Because of restrictions still. So we were like, it's going to happen this day, and then the First Minister was like, no, it's not. So we had to push it back even more. And so it was still the same day, but it was like having everyone on standby, being like, everyone be ready this weekend, but also just keep the next weekend just in case, blah blah blah. So that was really good. And yeah, just being like open and honest with the people that are being involved, like, and leaning on the people around you, because actually like everyone was so happy for us, even though they couldn't be there, even though they were originally supposed to be. Like, we had so much support, and like finding different ways to share. Like, I've seen so many people have, like, you know, live streams of their weddings in the past year. We didn't do any of that.
Yeah, that was one thing that we sort of regretted, was not, because we couldn't, not having some sort of video of the ceremony to sort of revisit.
Didn't you have a tripod with you?
It was like a very last minute setup, put the iPhone on,
It did actually record really well and picked everything up, but I think it would need some like editing, and we just haven't had that time. And it's also like so long that it's such a huge file that we can't send it to anyone. So we need to figure all that out, but we do have it. But it would just have been nice for it to be in a more kind of official capacity, or professional. That's the word I'm looking for.
And that was down to numbers, wasn't it? Because you couldn't there's no room maneuver for that, really, at the time. And and even now, people, even if we did move up to 20 again, you know, thinking of, it's good, people will choose guests over photographers and videographers and things like that. It's not an easy but that's fantastic. Oh yeah, Freya, my daughter, she is just saying a friend of hers did a drive-in cinema style live stream.
Oh, that's so cool.
I think they had this big space, so friends drove in, and then they put the ceremony on a big screen.
Oh wow,
that's
amazing.
But of course, these creative ideas are all evolving, because we've been in this situation for nearly a year now, haven't we? So it's amazing what creativity is coming out of this, and how people are trying to make it work in different ways. So yeah, you're right, lots more live streaming and Zoom weddings and all sorts of things like that as well. So yeah. So, and one other question is, like, I'm thinking about this whole process and like self-care, you know, how were you able to take time out of this, you know, thinking about this situation and planning and whatever, you know, how did you just, you know, take time out from it?
Yeah, it was, there was a lot going on. Like, we were kind of like, we had a lot going on with work, and obviously we talked about Vietnam stuff. We got married sort of in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and we really loved the countryside, but at that time we were living in London. So for us, it was literally, we were very lucky that we lived near the river and near a big park. Every day would go, take advantage of our hour allowed outside to go to the park, go to the river, just sort of away from screens and just chat. And it could be chatting about the wedding, or it could be just chatting about something completely random. And yeah, I just remember we spent a lot of time outdoors during that period.
Just when you could. And you were fantastic at doing your wedmin.
We were talking about that the other day. It became pubmin, and in the pub, and then
it did. That's where you'd go. You'd have your allocated time when you could. That's when we were free to do that. It became pubmin. Yeah. No, that was fantastic. Yeah. So, you know, I think you've said so much about this whole experience. You've shared so much, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's at the moment, you know, couples are sharing a lot on blogs, and there's a lot out there, which is fantastic, because I think the more that couples are kind of sharing their experiences, I think that can be really helpful for, as I say, for couples or families that are going through it just now as well. So I really appreciate you sharing all that. It's fantastic. And
thank you for asking us.
Early July, you got married, and we're in March now. So no, February now. So it's been kind of a bit of a
We were talking about it the other day, and it was like 6 or 7 months, and we just the time disappeared so quickly.
We're not very good at counting.
But that's really lovely. There's lots of people saying thank you, messaging and saying thanks. So what I'm going to do is pop, if it's okay with you, to pop this on Instagram, you know, on my Instagram TV and on story. And I'm going to try and put subtitles on it as well, actually, which will be quite good. So good. People can access it there. So yeah, that's fantastic. It's so nice to see the two of you.
I know, it's so nice to see you too. We're by the beach just now, and for the first time in like 7 weeks, I got to go in the sea today, and I was thinking of you the whole time.
And I was thinking that this morning, I was like, have I seen Kirstin and Chris since the wedding? And then I thought, we've swum together, haven't we, Kirstin?
We caught up a couple of times.
So that was brilliant. Yeah, because Chris, you'd gone, and when we were allowed to, and that was great. Oh, that was so lovely. Good. You're in the beach. Oh, that's my friend Jack, who is getting married. She's on her 3rd date, and she says she's now feeling really excited for her wedding. So,
have a great day.
Yeah, so she's they're on their 3rd date for various reasons, but so that's really good. If we can get people kind of, she's saying small and intimate is the new norm.
Absolutely.
So I'm so glad you're swimming. That's fantastic. Very different from white sand, so
a lot warmer.
So much warmer.
What is the temperature there just now?
Like high 20s.
Yeah.
Just now.
And the sea temperature is about 25, 26 or something.
That's absolutely amazing. And
it doesn't have the same gasp factor.
No, not at all. And I see you're starting your yoga classes, Kirstin, which is great. That's really brilliant.
Yeah, seeing how things go, but we'll see what happens.
I think because that's what's wonderful about Zoom and all these things. You can do it from anywhere, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes. Well, it's so nice to see you again, and that's wonderful. You've given me lots of time, given everyone loads of ideas and thoughts. So I really.
You're so welcome.
And
thank you so much for creating our ceremony and giving us an amazing day.
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was wonderful, and just that feeling came back to me, like you were saying about the excitement, you know, especially because it was kind of fresh out of lockdown and first ceremony after lockdown and all that kind of stuff. It was just fantastic. So thank you very much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. You
too. Have a good day.
All right, bye.
Okay, see you.